Good evening, dear viewers. This is RTD's English News Edition. Coming up tonight's major stories. At the Presidential Palace, the head of state chairs the second session of the Council of Ministers. And on the international news, Erdogan and Trump consider creating security zone in Syria. Thank you for being with us. Under the presidency of the head of state and head of the government, Ismail Margeli, held today the second meeting of the New Year 2019 Council of Ministers. 7 bills were on the agenda of the council. The first issue is a draft decree aimed at better organizing certain administrative structures of the state in order to make them more efficient. More with Saïd Mohamed.
Présidence du chef de l'État, son Excellence M. Ismail Margeli, s'est tenue la deuxième séance du Conseil des ministres en ce mardi 15 janvier 2019.
The head of state, His Excellency Ismail Margeli, has chaired the second sessions of the Ministers' Council this morning. 7 bills were on the agenda. The first bill concerned a draft decree reorganizing the administration of public institutions in charge for the public service missions. The purpose of this draft decree is to introduce and pursue reform based on the 3 main lines of action. First, the reintegration of certain administrative structures within the original administration in order to avoid budgetary disparity. Second, the merger of certain entities with similar fields of activities into a single administrative structure taking over the activities, personnel, and assets. New entities resulting from mergers that may have public productions or general interest missions. And third, the pure and simple elections for other structures that do not carry out their missions efficiently and whose management of integration into the public policy to which they are attached is lacking. The second bill concerned a draft decree establishing the Macroeconomic Framework Committee. This framework committee is in charge for monitoring the evolutions of macroeconomic aggregates as well as the short-term and medium but also long-term outlook. It will ensure the consistency of the national accounts, the state financial operation, the situation regarding the service of the public debt and the balance of payment. The committee will be composed of senior officials from the economy, budget, and the central bank department. The creation of this committee is part of a better assessment and monitoring of our major macroeconomic aggregates and make it possible to take the necessary measures to guide our economic policy in accordance with our country's development vision. The third bill concerned a draft decree allocating a parcel of land for the Ministry of Defense. The 3 parcels are located in Bilbila South with an area of 175 hectares. Housing will be built for the National Army on a part of 89 hectares and 86 hectares will be used for the installation of heavy artillery. The fourth bill is a draft decree defining the conditions of the operations of energy development project by Weko. Weko intends to produce electricity at his own expense from marine current or operating currents, difference in marine temperature, or in any other innovative way in the marine environment. In order to enable the company to implement the studies, the company is projecting areas and operating methods which are a prerequisite for its implementation and come from a private financing. The fifth bill concerned a draft decree appointing Mrs. Muna Ismail Abdu as the General Inspector of the National Education. The sixth bill is about a nomination appointing Mr. Muhammad Ali Abdullahi, Mr. Muhammad Ali Gedi, and Mr. Muhammad Bousi as the technical advisor for the National Education Minister. And at last, the seventh bill concerned a draft decree on the creation of a rail transport police security in order to strengthen the security of the railway installations and prevent acts of terrorism perpetrated on its equipment. A rail transport brigade will be created. This railway brigade is composed of police specialized in the field of surveillance and protection of railway infrastructures to accomplish these missions. The company will be equipped within surveillance equipment. This company, with the strength of 100 men, will have a commander who will be based at Nagar train station.
The head of state, Ismail Margele, has received this afternoon the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. Mr. Olusegun is also chairman of the advisory board of the African Trade Fair. He conducts regular consultations in Africa to accelerate the rapid ratification of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for the implementation of policies to facilitate inter-African trade. The meeting between President Gelle and former President Olusegun allowed a wide consultation on the problems of security and peace in the various African regions, and especially in East Africa. A strong delegation of investors from an international company based in 5 continents accompanies former President Olusegun, and these investors are interested in the strategic position of our country and plan to invest in the new Djiboutian free zone at PK13 for commercial activities and storage of petroleum products. Foreign Minister Mohamed Ali Yusuf and Secretary General of the Presidency Mr. Mohamed Abdullahi attended the meeting between President Gelle and the former Nigerian president, who will later visit Tanzania. The chairman of the Intra-African Trade Fair Advisory Board, Mr. Olusegun Obasanjo, explained in an interview the purpose of his visit. Let's hear it from him.
I came to the president really for a sort of solidarity visit, and then to rub minds with him on situation in the sub-region, the Horn and the Horn of Africa, East Africa, and also to look at the total situation in Africa, especially as we move towards the change of pattern as far as the leadership of AU is concerned. So we talk about the general areas of tension in this region, Yemen, Libya, what is happening in the Middle East generally, and what can be the way forward, because whatever happens in the Middle East affects Africa. Whatever affects any part of Africa affects the rest of us in Africa. And we have a very, very heart-to-heart discussion. And we end on the note that we have to work hard, but we also have to pray hard. Prayer and work.
And also occurred as an interview, the Foreign Affairs Minister Mohamed Ali Yusuf talked about the objective of the meeting, which was, according to him, to discuss the issues of concerns to Africans, including issues of peace and security. He said, "You must know that even though President Obasanjo has left the highest office of his country, he remains an active man. First of all, he is an ambassador. He is someone who was involved in many mediation initiatives," continued the Foreign Minister. Among the members of this delegation, there are, he said, investors who are interested to make investments in the free zone in Djibouti, companies that are very important in the field of facilitating storage for petroleum products. As part of the Social Action Week, the State Secretary of Social Affairs organized a meeting between social workers and community leaders at its Al-Rahma complex, and chaired by the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, the Secretary General, Mrs. Ifrah Ali Ahmed, the Director Amina Ahmed Warsama, the President of the Balbala Municipality, community leaders, and then other civil society actors took part in this meeting. This meeting is part of a public awareness for a better understanding of social windows to vulnerable families, people with special needs, youth employability, orphans, and vulnerable children. The objective of this meeting is to present discussions and debates between social workers and community leaders in order to provide more details on the different tasks of social workers and the circuit followed by the complaints of the users. The president of the commune of Balbala, Mr. Wabir Nouraleye, reminded that this meeting is to highlight the activities carried out by the Department of Social Affairs, but also to listen to the grievances of the population. He added that this meeting aims to demonstrate the existing inequality. The Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mona Osman Aden, in her speech, thanked the inhabitants of Balbala for the warm welcome. She added that this meeting aims to declare the actions carried out by her department and introduce young social workers. The Secretary of State for Social Affairs has indicated that the social windows have been opened in the arrondissements to acquire the grievances of the population to help the vulnerable and the people with special needs. She mentioned that these meetings are intended to give the floor to the people and to know their needs. And finally, she thanked the elected officials and associations for their effort in identifying people who really need help. Officials of the State Secretariat for Social Affairs held a working meeting today at the People's Palace with the representatives of several technical and financial ministries as well as delegates from other partner organizations. Mrs. Mona Osman Aden, Secretary of State for Social Affairs, has chaired this meeting. And this meeting aims at fixing the next steps of a strategy to be strengthened in a significant way social protection in the country and help vulnerable populations reduce the impact of poverty and lift the largest number of young people from precariousness and unemployment. This strategy responds to the political will of the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, which consists in fighting against precariousness and poverty. A review of the efforts made over the past year has been taken into account, and these efforts have been successful and have yielded positive results. The strategy is to leave no one behind, and stakeholders discuss all options to achieve the desired objectives. They also examine the question of funding established or planned programs. In her intervention, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mona Osman, emphasized the importance of developing the social and solidarity economy between industrial and commercial secondary youth and the creation of a social and economic environment conducive to encouraging young people to get jobs. And now in Abu Dhabi, where the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Younis Ali Gedi, is on a working visit to this country. He participated in the work of the International Agency for Renewable Energies, which is holding its 9th General Assembly. The minister and his delegation were joined by our ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. This 9th session was marked by the appointment of a new Director General of the agency, and its finally the Italian Francesco Lecamera, who was elected to the post of General Director of the institution. A direct vote was held in which representatives of all the member countries voted. The minister and his advisors also took part in various meetings to promote the renewable energy potential of our country. Coming back to the news of the country, delegates of the African peer review mechanism continued their consultations on the issue of good governance and fiscal decentralization. These representatives of the African Union, mandated by the head of state, met yesterday the representative of the UNDP in Djibouti, Mrs. Barbara Menzi. The UN agencies whose activities are coordinated by UNDP have as their main mission to accompany the Republic of Djibouti toward the path of progress and development. The MIAP team also requested UNDP to verify on the spot the implementation of their recommendations that will be made. The delegate of the APRM were subsequently received by the mayor of the city, Mrs. Fatuma Awali Osman. Discussions focused on decentralization and reform in this area. It will promote better management of public affairs and local managements. Mobilizing and managing financial resources are therefore pillars of local government action. Mayor Fatuma Osman underlined the importance of facilitating the realization of this project. And finally, the APRM delegation met with the sectoral ministries. This time, the discussions focused on the implementation of a policy intended to facilitate the achievement of the development objectives set by the government by making the territory a development level. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, has inaugurated a school in the refugee camp called Al-Markazi in the region of Obok. The inauguration ceremony was attended by the President of the Education Relief Foundation, Sheikh Mansour bin Musallam, Executive Secretary of Honors, Hussein Hassan Dirar, and representative of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in Djibouti. This school is entirely dedicated to the children of Yemeni refugees. It must enable them to benefit from quality education in the same way as Djiboutian children. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training has especially invited the President of the Foundation, Education Relief, Al-Sheikh Mansour bin Musallam, who supports and pleads throughout the world the urgency to promote a balanced education and inclusive for all to face the challenges of our time. As a reminder, the Ministry of National Education is committed within the framework of the Djibouti Declaration to all IGAD countries to offer quality and inclusive education to the children of refugees. In addition, the children of Mulhule, Dadato and Isola will soon have schools built closer to their place of residence. And these villages being distant from Obok city and their isolation had constituted until then a delicate problem for the creation of a school structure and the sending of teachers. Under the aegis of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohamed Kamil, the Djiboutian Football Federation on Sunday awarded a donation of equipment for the teams of the Regional Football League and the youth of Obok. Benefiting from a ministerial visit to Obok, coinciding with the launch of the National Social Action Week of the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Moumana Osman, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports with his colleagues of the National Education and Vocational Training, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, the Obok Prefect Hassan Dabale, the President of the Regional Council and other dignitaries of Hayu participated in the closing ceremony. An administrative and technical training has been provided by the FDF before proceeding to the distribution of sport and office equipment to the Regional Football League of Obok. The Secretary of State welcomed the enthusiasm of the youth for the sporting promotion of the region. The Minister wished the young people of Hayu, in the context of this regional seasonal competition, whose objective is to boost the development of national football, a success, but urging them to take care of these sports facilities. A few hours after Obok, it was the turn of the White City, Tajora, to host the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports for the official launch of the 2018-2019 season of the League of Regional Championship in the Northern regions. The end of an administrative and technical training on football regulations and the provision of sports equipment. Deputy Prefect Habib Jilani, Regional Council Vice President Abdul Qadir Umar, Technical Advisor Mohammed Ahmed, a representative of the FDF distributed the badge of sports and office equipment for the local officers in the Regional Football League. On this occasion, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohamed Kamil, in a short speech, was immediately pleased with the warm welcome. The Minister emphasized the importance of these regional football competitions, not only in the sporting context, but especially in favor of culture mixes conducive of national unity and patriotic fervor. The South as a part of this regional football championship. The Mayor of Djibouti launched last Saturday an ambitious program of tree plantation in Urban Avenue Hassan Goulet Abtidon. This ambitious program of plantation has as main objectives to strengthen the tree presence in urban areas and beautify the city while actually promoting biodiversity and preserving air quality. The National Police, the Coast Guards, the Gendarmerie, the Djiboutian Army Forces, civil society actively participated in this program launched by the Mayor of Djibouti. Also, in connection with seizing of illicit products, large-scale operations were carried out jointly by the National Police and the Djibouti Army Forces. The police arrested products consisting of smuggled cigarettes and cat that were not taxed by the customs services. They were smuggled into the national territory for resale at various prices in all the shops in our country. This traffic, more and more recurrent, is a real obstacle to economic development and a real loss for the national economy. The investigative and judicial brigade of the Central Police Station opened an investigation to stop the smugglers on the run, and especially to identify the owners of the counterfeit cigarettes in order to bring them to justice. The operation was successful. In total, 10 smugglers and 2 women identified as the owners of different goods were arrested as part of these operations. The commander of the investigative brigade and judicial delegation of the National Police, Captain Abdulkarim Ahmed Assowe, has stressed that the non-taxed products are a real loss for the national economy. He has appealed to the public who, in case of resale of non-taxed products, face heavy penalties. International scene now. In Turkey, Erdogan Trump considered creating security zone in Syria. In more details with Hind Ibrahim.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and U.S. counterpart Donald Trump voted Monday the creation of security zone in northern Syria as tension rose over the fate of Kurdish fighters in the war-torn country. In a telephone conversation, the leaders discussed the idea of creating a security zone declared of terrorism in north of the country. The Kurdish presidency said in a statement. Trump confirmed this in tweet Lisa, but referred to the proposed area as a safe zone. This came after Turkey vowed it will not be intimidated by Trump's threat of economic devastation if Ankara attacked Kurdish forces as U.S. troops withdraw for Syria. Trump on Sunday warned the U.S. will devastate Turkey economically in the hate Kurdish. Ankara has repeatedly threatened to carry out a cross-border operation against the Kurdish People's Protection United.
And that's all for this edition. Thank you for joining us on RTD channel and have a good night.